Hey, do you normally worry about things? Do you find yourself getting stressed or being stressed? Do you feel yourself kind of like a nervous personality? Well, all of those are signs of anxiety. And if anxiety is kind of a normal part of you in a normal world, then what happens when your world becomes not so normal? Like what we're experiencing with this coronavirus. It's taking our normal and making it abnormal, which is going to make your anxiety jump. And so in this video today, I want to help people that are having anxiety with the coronavirus, because it's a really uncertain time. We don't know what's happening. We don't know what this is about. When we get in these situations of feeling uncertain, guess what? We feel out of control. We feel powerless and helpless. And because of this pandemic, the recommendation is that we create some social isolation, and that is just going to compound the problem. So in this video, what I want to do is I want to help you create safety in a situation that feels pretty unsafe. So if that's something that you need, stick around. Thank you so much for joining the Gathering of Good People. This is a nonprofit that's really dedicated to helping you grow emotionally, relationally, and spiritually. I'm Brett, your favorite shrink, and the host here of The Gathering. Now let me start off with a little bit of a story about me. In my house, I'll show you some B-roll around my house, but in my house, I got a bunker. This bunker was built for disaster. For the probably about last 10 years, I have been preparing. I've been thinking about almost every kind of disaster you can imagine. Fire, flood, economic disasters, war, and even pandemic. And in thinking about all these different kinds of disasters that could happen to us, I've tried to work through every scenario and figure out what do I need to be ready for it. And so here in my bunker, I got it all. I have probably a good 6 months worth of food, 6 months worth of water, 6 months medical supplies. I even have some guns and ammunition in case somebody wants to try and take away my supplies, which I don't recommend. But you know what else all this preparation has done for me? It's made me super anxious. Thinking about all the what ifs in the world, thinking about all the possible things that could go wrong in our lives, creates a ton of anxiety, creates a ton of fear. And the reason it creates that fear is because the way the brain works. See, we have different parts to our brain, and you've heard me talk about my 5 minds many, many times. But in my left neocortex, my logical, rational brain, I like to think about things pretty analytically, pretty detached. And when I'm just purely in my analytical brain, it's kind of a disconnected place, a disassociated place. And it gives me lots of room to think about scenarios. However, this isn't just me thinking about disaster as if it was my job, as if I'm working at some company and my job is to think about all the possibilities that could happen and make sure the company is prepared. This is my life, my family. This is real to me. And because of that, I am having trouble. I always have had trouble just thinking about it in an intellectual kind of way. As I start thinking about the scenarios, I start picturing, imagining them. As I start to picture and imagine them, what happens is that shifts over to my right neocortex, the creative brain. And then those pictures begin to filter down into my emotional mind. And that's where the anxiety starts to build. See, one of the important things that you have to know about the way the brain works is that your emotional mind, particularly, it can't tell the difference between, what you're thinking, just kind of what you're imagining and ruminating on, and what is real. It's one of the reasons why we like to go to the movies. If I go to the movies and I see somebody in love, or I see somebody with superpowers, just for that moment, as I'm thinking about it, as I'm picturing it, as I'm seeing it there on the screen, I can feel it. I can feel what it feels like to be in love. I can feel maybe even a little bit what it feels like to have superpowers. And that's why we love it. That's why we enjoy going to the movies or reading books, hearing stories. Because to our emotional mind, it's sometimes hard to separate what is true and what is a story. And particularly when we're talking about disasters, we're talking about preparing for something like this, like the coronavirus, we're going to be creating a lot of awful, no good, really bad pictures in our mind. And then that is going to be generating tons and tons of anxiety in our body. So it's happening to me. It's been happening to me for years, but I got to push through it. And the reason I got to push through it is my family depends on that. I want to make sure I am prepared to take care of my family. But along the way, I've learned some lessons. I've learned some things that I'm going to pass along to you to help you deal, to help you both prepare and also not overwhelm yourself with anxiety. The other thing I want to bring into this is on the website, GATHERINGOFGOODPEOPLE.com, we are putting on a new anxiety group. And it's some of the fundamental principles in the anxiety group that we're going to draw from and talk about in this particular video in terms of giving you some tips. In fact, I think I have 3 tips for you guys. Really, technically 4, but just for a good number, we're going for 3. And the 3 tips really are based on this anxiety group. If you want to learn more about the anxiety group, contact me, Brett, at GATHERINGOFGOODPEOPLE.com, because we got to put you in a cohort. Everybody that goes through the anxiety group goes as a collective. It's just going to create community for you, help you get through it. All right, so that said, let's get down to the basic of what's going on. Now, in the introduction, I talked a little bit about what anxiety is. Well, anxiety is fear that doesn't turn off. Fear is a very natural part of our lives. It comes and it goes. But anxiety is this fear that turns on and then stays on. And that's where it becomes problematic. That's where it becomes anxiety for us. So at the core of understanding what fear is about, because that's what anxiety comes from, fear, I think fear is really centered in our primary human need. You know what our primary human need is, right? Well, we have 7 human needs. And that's part of one of our workshops we're doing called The Sevens. Talks about the 7 human needs or the 7 developmental stages. Well, the very first developmental need, and you already know this, is safety. If you don't feel safe, nothing happens. All your body functions shut down. You stop digesting. You stop being hungry. You stop being thirsty. You stop sleeping. All of your body functions just shut down because number one priority is staying safe. And until you feel safe, your body's just going to stop. So that's core, right? We can't move forward if we don't feel safe. And that's why at looking at anxiety, that's what the first thing we got to punch into and deal with. Now, let's keep unraveling this kind of onion, as it were, digging down. I always think of Shrek and Donkey as we talk about the onion, unraveling the onion. As we start to unravel the onion, we look at, okay, safety is really the issue behind fear. Fear is really the issue behind anxiety. As we look at safety as our core kind of problem, right? We're not feeling safe. We have to think for a minute, what is it that makes us safe or makes us unsafe? What is it? What makes us safe or unsafe? Well, I believe there's 3 primary conditions that are required for us to feel safe. The first, I call them the 3 C's. The first is certainty. If I have no certainty in my world, I don't know what's going to happen or when, that's going to produce a lot of anxiety. I'm always going to be on guard, ready for something because I don't know what is going to happen. Nothing's predictable in my world. Isn't that what's happening with this virus? The COVID-19, right? Second thing I need to feel safe is I need a sense of control. If I could feel like I was in charge of me and I felt like I was confident in my skills and abilities, I felt like I'm in control. I'm in control. I can handle what's going to happen. If I had that, I could even deal with a certain amount of uncertainty, taking risks, doing kind of risky things, jumping out of airplanes or riding motorcycles or whatever that may be, because I have a certain amount of certainty in myself. Right? Can you see that? The third thing that we need for a sense of safety is connection. Hey, if I was going to punish you, if I was going to hurt you in the worst way I could, I'd isolate you. In prison, we call it solitary confinement. In old days, if you were found guilty of some crimes, we would exile you, send you out of the community. You're out of the city. You're out away from everybody. You're on your own. You're exiled. That was an extreme form of punishment because we so need and so require community to feel safe. Now, those are the 3 elements. How are we going to get those 3 elements so you can feel safe? Well, there are 3 things that make you you. And guess what? They connect with what we need to be safe. So this is going to be kind of our answer. This is going to give us direction where to go. The 3 things that make me, me, that makes you, you, is what I do every day, my habits, what I practice, how I live my life. That shapes me. That shapes who I am, good or bad. If I'm a professional athlete, then I need to be practicing every day my fundamental skills. And if I do, I'm going to be a good athlete. If I don't, I'm going to be a bad athlete. My habits, my activities shape who I am. The second thing that shapes who I am is what I meditate on. In the gathering, we call it, we use the phrase, you are what you meditate on. Just a really simple way of thinking about what you're thinking about. All day long, your mind is going. There's never a minute in the day, and maybe not even at night, when your mind is quiet. It's always thinking about this, that, or the other. Now, depending on whatever you're thinking about, that's going to be constantly shaping your brain and shaping your moods and emotions. So the first thing I need to be safe is I need to have certainty, right? Well, that's where my habits come in. That's where my behaviors come in. That first thing we talked about. If I have a consistency in scheduling and structure, I'm going to create safety. If I don't, I'm going to feel out of control, right? The second thing that we're talking about right now is I am what I meditate on. I am what I think about. That's where the second element of safety comes in. What I need to feel safe is I need to feel I'm in control. Well, that feeling of being in control is really a belief. It's a thought. It's how do I see myself? How do I picture myself? Do I believe I'm in control, or do I feel like I'm out of control? That's a thought. You are what you meditate on. The third thing that you need that makes you who you are, guess what? Community. Community. Community creates connection, which is the third thing that we need to feel safe. So I think it's pretty cool. These three things that make us who we are also the three things that are going to help us create safety. Now, let's break them down and spell out some really specific tips for you on how to create safety in a practical way. First off, let's look at thoughts, because I think thoughts are probably the easiest thing for us to change. You may disagree, but man, thoughts are actually much easier to deal with than habits. Habits are sometimes hard to break and hard to form. They take time and practice. But thoughts, they have some flexibility in them. So the first tip I want to give you is I want you to start meditating, thinking about what you want. Thinking about the outcome that you want. I want to feel safe again. I want to feel like my life is normal again. I want to see everything going back to its old way of being it. And I want to see everybody I love healthy. Healthy and strong. Now, most of the time, if you're like me, most of the time you're meditating on all the what ifs and what could go wrong, right? That's what you do, that's what I do. And that's going to spin you into this anxiety because your emotional mind is reactive brain and it's reacting to all the pictures that you're creating. So you got to make sure you're spending time thinking about goal. Why am I doing all this worrying? Why am I doing all this preparing? Why am I doing all of anything? What do I want? I want to create safety. I want to create safety. I want to create safety. I want to see safety for myself. I want to see safety for my family, my friends, the people I love. So that's why I prepare, is because I want to feel safety. And I got to keep focusing on that, because when I focus on the disaster part of it, it makes me crazy, makes me anxious. Okay? Now here's a second tip. It's kind of like a bonus. Okay? Bonus tip. It goes along with the thinking. You are what you meditate on, right? Second thing I want to suggest is that when you worry, when you're anxious, when you're upset, when you're letting yourself kind of process this stuff, do it while you're writing. See, in my thoughts, my mind, there's no beginning, there's no end. My thoughts loop and loop and loop and loop and loop. And I think about crazy things all day long. There's no end to it. But when I write, what happens is there's a top of the page and there's a bottom of the page. There's a beginning and there is an end to it. And so writing is a way to create flow in your thoughts. It helps organize your thoughts, it helps focus your thoughts, and helps your thoughts from looping. To help you with that, this is one of the free resources I'm going to give to you at the end as well. But to help you with that, we created a forum at the GATHERINGOFGOODPEOPLE.com. And the forum is our Corona anxiety. And I want you to go there and be able to share your anxieties, your fears, your thoughts, and get input and support from other people that are in the same boat. Because we understand each other, right? We get it. We get the way we think about things. We get the anxiety that we all have. And if we can support each other, that's going to help us get through it. So that's kind of like the second bonus tip on thoughts, is I want you to write out your thoughts. And preferably, I'd like to write them in our forum so we can share them together. All right, second thing that we talked about that makes you who you are is the habits, the things you practice, right? Remember that? That's going to create the consistency that you need to feel safe. A lot of us, our schedules are disrupted. Maybe we're not going to work. Maybe we're working from home. Our schedules are kind of out of play. See if you can help create as a normal schedule as possible for yourself. See if you can still get up at the same time, still go to bed at the same time. And if you don't have consistent bedtimes, create them. See if also you can create in your schedule time for you to heal, time for help for you, time to exercise, time to meditate, maybe even time to journal and write, right? Kind of get those thoughts out there. But I want you to schedule it. Create consistency by creating a schedule. That is going to be huge. If your life is totally unscheduled and unpredictable, then you're going to have lots of anxiety because it feels out of control. Okay? So that's really tip number 2, really technically. Create a schedule for yourself. Get some consistency in your life. All right? Now, the third category we talked about is community. And that's what we were talking about in terms of creating the forum. I really want you to use the forum as a way to reach out to other people. If you do have people in your life that you love and you respect and get your anxiety, who really understand, these, what they would call irrational fears, but to you, they feel rational, they feel probable. If you need a place that you can get that support, if you don't have it with your friends, come to the forum. Because we can do this together. We can't do this alone. I think I've said this a million times over. The reason why we're seeing so much more anxiety in our society today than we have even in the last 10, 20 years is because we're disconnected. We're more and more and more disconnected through media. And that's a huge problem. Think about where we are with this coronavirus. As we have to distance ourselves from our community, our friends, people at work, people we usually interact with, what that does is it creates a void, which makes it unsafe. But then we start creating community with screens. And the screens that we can create community with, the news, and what we're hearing on the news is all this negativity. Not that the journalists are negative people, but they're reporting on what's going on. And that constant feedback of negative from this negative community is going to make you more negative and anxious. Social media is the same kind of thing. On social media, we're getting a lot of negative input, a lot of negative feedback, and that's keeping us anxious. So, third tip, so please limit your time. Limit your time on screens, limit your time on the news. Get as little as you can just so you're updated and know what's going on, and then shut it off, cut it down. That is not going to be your community. And then the second part of that is to connect with good community. Get on our forum, talk with people that love you and understand you. Make sure you're around people because you're going to need that. All right, those are our 3 tips. Tip number 1, make sure that you're thinking positive, focusing on your outcomes and the results. And second part of tip 1 was journal write. Create a beginning, create an end, and keep your thinking limited. Don't let it loop. Tip number 2, remember, we are what we practice. You need to practice good things like meditating, practice good things like exercise, and you need to create a schedule for yourself because that's going to help contain the chaos, having routines that you're running through. All right? And then the third thing that we talked about is community, our need for community. First part of that, be aware of negative community. Be aware of people, either the news or media or even people around you that are just adding to your anxiety because they're anxious. And you're hanging around them, not in a constructive way or supportive way, but in a negative way, and they're pulling you down. So be careful of negative connections with people, community. And then second part of that, again, connect with positive people. connect with the forum we have at the Gathering of Good People, or just connect with people that are optimistic, people that are going to help encourage you and hopefully not shame your anxiety, but support your anxiety. Thank you so much. I hope these tips are really going to help you. Leave some comments below. Ask questions if you want and need to. And please subscribe. Subscribe to our podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hey, we even have a Facebook page and a Facebook group. Are we cool or what? GATHERINGOFGOODPEOPLE.com. All right. Thanks so much. I will talk to you again. I'm Brett, your favorite shrink. Take care.